Welcome back to the deep end. I want to start today by asking you to do something a little different.
Hmm.
I want you to close your eyes just for a second. Visualize a map of the Middle East. You've seen it 1,000 times on the news, in history books, maybe on the flight tracker screen when you're traveling.
Sure, I can see it.
You see the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea splitting at the top like rabbit ears, the Nile River winding down. Now, I want you to drop a mental pin, on the absolute center of Islamic history.
For about 2 billion people on Earth right now, that pin drops in one specific place.
Yeah.
The Hijaz, the western coast of Saudi Arabia, Mecca.
Exactly. Mecca. It's the anchor. It's the direction of prayer. It's the setting for the story of the Prophet Muhammad. It is the geographic standard model of Islam. But open your eyes now.
Okay.
What if I told you that pin is in the wrong place?
And we aren't talking about a margin of error here. We aren't talking about being a few miles off or it was actually the next valley over.
No. We are talking about a shift of hundreds of miles. We are talking about moving the entire theater of prophetic history north.
Way north.
Out of the desert sands of Arabia and into the stone canyons, the olive groves, and the ancient ruins of the Levant. Specifically, Jordan and Palestine.
It sounds impossible, right? I mean, on the face of it, it sounds like the plot of a Dan Brown novel or some fringe internet conspiracy.
It really does. But what we are diving into today is a dense, incredibly complex theological and geographical theory that challenges pretty much everything we call heritage or Turaf.
The entire scholarly tradition.
Today we are unpacking the work of Dr. Khaled Waleed. He is the researcher behind the almighty Covenant channel, that's Mithaq Al-Khaliq on YouTube. And let me tell you, deep dive is the only appropriate term for this.
Oh, absolutely.
We have gone through transcripts, lectures, and some very intense diagrams to bring you this deep dive.
Dr. Waleed's work is massive. It's not just a tweak here or there. It's a complete reconstruction of Quranic history. And we have to be clear right from the jump. This is a Quran-only project.
That's a crucial distinction. Let's explain what that means for the listeners who might not be deep into Islamic theology.
Sure. So the traditional understanding of Islam, what we call the heritage or Turath, is built on the Quran, yes, but it's interpreted through lenses.
Multiple lenses.
You have the Hadith, the sayings attributed to the Prophet, the Sirah, which are the biographies written centuries later, and the Tafsir, the commentaries. Dr. Waleed takes a very radical stance.
Which is?
He argues that these secondary sources aren't just helpful additions. He thinks they are corruptions.
He calls them a filter, right? A dirty filter that obscures the picture.
Even stronger. He sometimes refers to the traditional scholarship as sorcery or a spell.
Wow. Sorcery.
Yeah. He believes that by relying on history books written 200 years after the Prophet, Muslims have been blinded to what the Quran is actually saying.
Oh.
His mission is to strip all of that away.
Everything.
He wants to reconstruct the map, the history, and the theology using only the internal data of the Quran itself.
And the picture he reconstructs is, well, it's wild. We're talking about a world where Makkah is actually the ancient city of Petra, where the cave of Revelation isn't on a lonely mountain, but hidden under the dome of the rock in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And where the prophets aren't just random figures scattered through time, but part of a very specific mathematical code.
A system, a coherent system. And just a quick disclaimer before we get into the weeds. We are here as your guides.
Exactly.
We are impartial observers exploring Dr. Waleed's specific arguments and interpretations found in his work. We aren't here to say this is the absolute truth, and we aren't here to say this is heresy.
No, we're here to say this is a fascinating, complex theory that completely reimagines history. It's a shortcut to understanding a worldview that is usually hidden behind hours of dense Arabic lectures.
Right.
So let's start with the cast of characters. In the traditional story, you have the Ulu Azm, right? The Possessors of Constancy. Who makes that list usually?
If you go to any Islamic school or open a standard textbook, you'll find the big five.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, the heavy hitters. Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. That's the consensus. These are the prophets who endured the most, who brought major laws.
But Dr. Waleed looks at the text and says, the math is wrong.
He does. He says, where does the number 5 come from? He argues that the Quranic structure doesn't support a group of 5.
So what does it support?
He says the text points to a specific, unbreakable group of 8.
8 prophets. Okay, let's list them out. Who is in Dr. Waleed's atlas?
So, working chronologically, according to his research, the list is Noah, Hud, Salah, Abraham, Lot, Shu'aib, Moses, and finally Muhammad.
Okay, I'm noticing a big name missing from that specific ASM list in his categorization, Jesus.
Right.
That's interesting. Where does he fit in?
It is, and that's a whole theological discussion on its own that we could probably do another deep dive on. Dr. Waleed obviously reveres Jesus, but he categorizes him differently within the structural framework of the covenant.
So not part of this specific group of 8.
Not in this particular lineup, no. He focuses on these 8 as the specific constitution builders or the establishment figures of the religion in this specific geography he's outlining.
And he doesn't just list them as 8 random guys. He groups them. He has this formula. 7 plus 1.
Right. 7 plus 1. This is absolutely key to his whole system. The 7 correspond to what the Quran calls the Saban min al-Mathani,
which is usually translated as the 7 oft-repeated verses referring to the opening chapter al-Fatiha.
Correct. That's the traditional take. But Dr. Waleed interprets Mathani very, very differently, which we will get to in the linguistics section.
Okay, so we'll put a pin in that for now.
For now, just know that he views the first 7 prophets, so Noah through Moses, as the 7 gates, or the 7 pairs.
The 7.
And then you have the 1.
The 1 being Muhammad.
Yes. Muhammad is the seal,
Okay.
completer, the verifier.
Yeah.
He's the one who makes the whole system work.
Dr. Waleed uses a really tactile visual analogy to explain this. He calls it the hand analogy.
Oh, it's a great analogy.
And I actually want us to do this. Listener, if you're not driving a car with both hands on the wheel, just look at your hand for a second.
It's a fantastic way to visualize the data. Look at your 4 fingers. Not the thumb, just the 4 fingers.
Okay, I got my 4 fingers up. Index, middle, ring, pinky.
Those 4 fingers have tips, peaks. That's 4 points.
4 points, got it.
Now look between the fingers, the spaces, the valleys.
I see 3 spaces. Between index and middle, little and ring and pinky.
Exactly. 4 peaks plus 3 valleys equals 7.
7.
That represents the 7 Mathani, the structure of the previous prophets, from Noah to Moses.
Yeah.
They are the framework of the hand.
Oh,
But
there's a but.
try to pick up a pen using just those 4 fingers without your thumb.
Okay, I'm trying it now. It's awkward. You can kind of scoop it, but you have no grip. There's no precision at all.
You have no control. You have no precision. Now bring the thumb in. The thumb is the 8th element. It is part of the hand, but it stands separate. It opposes the fingers. It allows the hand to function as a tool.
So in this analogy, the thumb is Muhammad.
Yes. Dr. Waleed argues that Muhammad and the Quran given to him acts as the thumb. He is the controller or the gripper.
The gripper, I like that.
The Quran verifies the stories of the previous 7. It corrects the narrative. It allows us to grasp the truth of Noah, Hud, Salah, and the rest. Without the thumb, the other fingers are just there. They are static.
They're just a framework.
With the thumb, you have a functional hand.
That is such a sticky image. It really helps you understand why he separates the 1 from the 7, even though they are part of the same group. It's about function.
Exactly. It's all about function. And this leads us to how he defines this group. Why these 8? Why not Solomon? Why not David? Or Joseph? He focuses on the word asm, constancy.
Traditionally, asm means patience, right? Like, I'm suffering, but I'm patient. A kind of passive endurance.
That's the common understanding. But Dr. Waleed rejects that passive definition. He says asm is active. It's political. It's confrontational.
How so?
He defines asm as the ability to stand openly against a great tyranny.
A great tyranny. Not just like some difficult people.
No, he means an established authoritarian power structure. We aren't just talking about a prophet being ignored by his neighbors. We are talking about Noah facing the ruling council of his people, Moses facing Pharaoh, Shuaib facing the economic cartel of Midian.
So it's a confrontation with the state?
Yes, a direct challenge to the system. And Dr. Waleed emphasizes that these specific figures were given a special sultan, a warrant, or a divine authority from God that protected them.
Protected them how?
He notes that despite being surrounded by what the Quran calls devils of mankind and jinn, despite the constant threats of death, they were untouchable until the message was delivered.
So asm is that immunity, that ability to walk into the lion's den and say, you're wrong, and walk out again.
Precisely. It's the constancy of the message in the face of total systemic opposition. It's a very specific job description.
Okay, so we have the list, we have the hand. But Dr. Waleed didn't just decide, I like these 8 guys. He claims the Quran is coded with this list. This brings us to section 2, the Atlas methodology.
This is where Dr. Waleed puts on his data scientist hat. He really does. He treats the Quran not just as a book of stories, but as a data set.
I find this fascinating.
He believes that if you map out where these names appear, you start to see heat maps or clusters. He calls these nodes.
Nodes, like central hubs in a network?
Yes. He argues that there are specific surah's chapters that act as foundational nodes, where this specific group of 8 is listed together, either explicitly or implicitly.
Oh.
He's looking for the backbone of the book.
Can you give us an example? Walk us through one of these nodes.
The clearest one, the one he always starts with, is Surah Hud. It's the 11th chapter. Dr. Waleed calls this the node of Ulu Alaz.
The node of the possessors of Constancy.
Right. If you read Surah Hud, it's just one after the other. You get the stories of Noah, Hud, Salah, Abraham, Lot, Shuaib, and Moses in that exact chronological order. And the whole thing is addressed to Muhammad to stabilize his heart.
So it's the whole gang right there in one chapter. The 7 plus the one it's addressed to.
The whole gang. It's a complete download of the 7+1 pattern. And he finds this pattern repeating in Surah Al-Araf, Surah Al-Shu'ara, and Surah Al-Hajj. He argues that this repetition isn't accidental. It's structural.
It's a signature.
It's the Quran screaming at the reader, these are the key figures, watch this sequence.
But I noticed in his notes he talks about implicit presence. Because sometimes a name is missing, right? The data isn't always perfectly clean.
That's the catch. And this is where his method requires you to really follow his logic, because it's not always obvious. Sometimes a surah mentions 7 of them explicitly, but leaves one out.
So what does he do then?
Dr. Waleed looks closer. He looks for a fingerprint, a code word, a reference to their people or their specific story.
Give me an example of a fingerprint.
Okay, let's look at Surah Kaf. It's a very intense, short surah. It lists a bunch of destroyed groups. The people of Noah, the companions of the Ras, Thamud, Ad, Pharaoh, the brethren of Lot, the companions of the Aika, and the people of Tuba.
Okay, so that's a list of peoples, not prophets. I don't see Abraham or Muhammad in that list by name.
Exactly. So Dr. Waleed decodes it. He links Ad to the prophet Hud. That's easy. Thamud to Salah. Pharaoh to Moses. The brethren of Lot to Lot. Those are straightforward connections made elsewhere in the Quran.
Right.
But then he has to identify the obscure ones.
Companions of the Ras. I've always wondered about that one. Who are they?
Dr. Waleed, through cross-referencing other verses, concludes that the Ras refers to the people of Abraham. He links it to a story of them being thrown into a well, or Ras. So if he sees Ras, he marks a check for Abraham.
So it's a proxy.
A proxy.
Yeah.
And companions of the Aika.
The people of the thicket or the woods.
He links that to Shuaib and the people of Midian. And people of Tuba, through other verses, he links to the context of Muhammad's time, the people of al-Qura.
So even though the names Abraham or Muhammad aren't there, he argues the structure of the 8 remains intact.
The pattern holds. It's like he's filling in a Sudoku puzzle.
That's a great analogy.
If he sees the surrounding numbers, he knows what goes in the blank square. He builds a grid, literally a spreadsheet approach marking presence across the 114 surahs. He argues that when you account for these implicit mentions, the 7+1 structure becomes the dominant narrative backbone of the entire Quran.
And this methodology, the strict adherence to the text's internal logic, this is what leads him to a very aggressive stance against traditional scholarship.
Oh, absolutely.
You mentioned he refers to the traditional heritage, the books of history, the hadith collections, the tafsir commentaries, as a spell.
Sorcery. He uses the term sorcerers to describe the scholars who rely on Turath.
That is incredibly strong language. Why is he so hostile to them?
Because he believes they broke the primary covenant.
Yeah.
Remember, for him, the first rule is you only take knowledge from the Quran. He believes that early figures, especially a man named Ka'b al-Ahbar, who was a Jewish convert to Islam in the early days,
I had the name,
introduced what is called Israeliyat, or Israelite narratives, into Islamic tradition. Dr. Waleed argues that these narratives corrupted the geography and history. He thinks they essentially blinded Muslims to the true map of the Quran.
So he thinks we've been reading the map wrong because we've been using a corrupted legend key provided by people who wanted to hide the truth.
That's his core thesis. He thinks the heritage is a veil, a deliberate obfuscation. And that brings us to the most explosive part of his theory.
Section 3.
The radical geographical shift.
This is the part that usually makes people stop and say, wait, what? Dr. Waleed says we are looking in the wrong country.
He does. He claims the events of the Quran, the stories of these prophets, and the life of Muhammad himself did not happen in the Hijaz.
Okay.
They didn't happen in modern-day Saudi Arabia.
So no Mecca as we know it today, no Kaaba in that specific location.
Not as the location of the Quranic events, no. He argues the entire narrative takes place in the Levant, specifically Jordan and Palestine.
Let's break this down. This is huge. The Quran mentions Makkah and Bakka. Most people, I think, assume those are just two names for the same place, like New York and the Big Apple.
Right. Traditionally, they are synonyms, maybe a slight linguistic variation. Dr. Waleed separates them completely. He says Makkah and Baka are two different places with two different spiritual polarities.
Polar opposites.
Like a positive and negative terminal on a battery.
Okay, let's pin them down on the map. Where is Makkah in Dr. Waleed's atlas?
He identifies the Quranic Makkah, which the Quran calls the mother of towns, or al-Qura as Petra in Jordan.
Outro, the Rose City, the place with the treasury carved into the red cliffs, Indiana Jones territory.
That's the one. He argues that Petra fits the Quranic descriptions of the town of the oppressors. He links it to polytheism, to a geography of hellfire with its narrow ravines and stone structures. He describes it as the place of the broken or destroyed civilizations.
So when the Quran speaks of a town that was warned and destroyed, he points to the ruins of Petra.
Yes. For him, Makkah is the cursed city, the hub of idolatry and corrupt commerce.
So Makkah is Petra, the city of idolatry. Then where is Baka? The Quran talks about Baka as the first house established for mankind, a blessed place.
He identifies Baka as Jerusalem. Al-Quds.
Jerusalem. So the sanctuary, the house of God, is in Jerusalem.
Yes. He claims that Baka is the true sanctuary, the place of peace, the true direction of prayer. He frames the prophetic career as a tale of two cities. Makkah, Petra, representing the corrupted, idolatrous priesthood and commercial hub, and Baka, Jerusalem, representing the true monotheistic center.
This completely rewires the story of the prophet. The entire narrative, the hijrah, the migration.
It changes everything.
Instead of moving between Mecca and Medina in Saudi Arabia, Dr. Waleed suggests a movement or conflict between Petra and Jerusalem.
Or at least a struggle centered on that northern geography. And this is where he ties the seven Masani directly to this map. Remember the seven gates?
The gates. Right. You said he interprets Mathani differently. He says that seven Mathani aren't just verses, they are physical locations.
Correct. He maps the seven prophets, Noah through Moses, to specific geographical gates or regions in the Levant. It's like a spiritual atlas.
Okay, walk us through the map. Where is everyone in this version of history?
Okay, let's look at his list of gates. First, Noah. He links Noah to the gate of Al-Tanur, the source of the flood.
Okay.
Second, Hud. Traditionally, Hud and his people, the people of Ad, are placed way down in the empty quarter of Arabia. Dr. Waleed pulls him way north.
To where?
To the Gate of Al-Akaf. But he locates this in the Jordan-Petra region, linking it to the ruins of a place called Iram of the Pillars.
So he's pulling Hud up north into Jordan.
Yes. Third is Salaya and the people of Thamud. He places them at the Gate of Al-Hishur, again in the Petra-Jordan Valley region.
So those first prophets are all clustered around this Petra area.
Very tightly clustered. Fourth, Abraham. He links him to the Gate of Al-Ras. Fifth, Lot. He links Lot to the Gate of the Elephant or the companions of the village. These are the overturned cities, usually associated with the Dead Sea area.
That fits the biblical geography for Lot as well, more or less.
It does. It's much closer. Sixth is Shuaib. He is in the Gate of Al-Aika, or Midian, again in that same general vicinity. And seventh is Moses. He's at the Gate of the Holy Land, Jerusalem, Palestine, the place he was trying to get to.
And the eighth, the thumb.
The Gate of Makkah and the people of Tuba. He places Muhammad right in the thick of this ancient conflict, engaging with the people of the book and the polytheists in this Petra-Jerusalem axis.
It's fascinating how he collapses the geography. Instead of prophets being scattered across thousands of miles and thousands of years, he sees them operating in a very specific, recurring theater of operations.
It's a great way to put it, a theater of operations. He believes God uses this specific land, from the Nile to the Euphrates, with the Jordan River Valley as the core, as the stage for striking examples.
Darb al-Amthal.
Yes, the land where examples are set. He argues it makes no sense for God's message to be popping up in random deserts thousands of miles away from the established center. The covenant is tied to this land.
There is one detail in his geography that really stuck with me, and it's a huge one. The cave.
Ah, yes. All God.
Every Muslim knows the story of the cave of Hira. The prophet retreats to a small cave on a mountain near Mecca to meditate. The angel Gabriel appears. Read. It's iconic.
Dr. Waleed says.
I know.
Not there.
No.
He claims the cave, or Gar, mentioned in the Quran, is actually the area under the foundation stone in Jerusalem, under the Dome of the Rock.
The Well of Souls, that little cave you can go down into.
Yes, that's the one. He argues that this is the true cave of sanctuary. He connects it to the companions of the cave, the seven sleepers, and claims it was a continuous place of refuge and revelation for the prophets, including Muhammad.
That is a massive shift in mental imagery.
Huge.
Instead of a lonely mountain in the desert, he's in the womb of the Temple Mount, the absolute center of previous revelations.
It changes the flavor of the revelation, doesn't it? It makes it less about a new start in a remote place, and more about reclaiming the ancient center. It connects Muhammad directly to the lineage of David and Solomon.
Right.
He's an outsider. He's returning to the source.
And if the location is the Temple Mount, then the antagonists in the story aren't just pagan tribesmen worshipping idols in the desert. They are the guardians of the temple. This leads us to section 4, rewriting history.
This is where his theory gets into what we might call conspiratorial history, or perhaps hidden history is a better term. He draws a continuous line of opposition, connecting the time of Moses to the time of Muhammad.
He talks about the 70 men. Who are they?
In the Quran, there's a story where Moses chooses 70 men from his people for an appointed time with God. These men then rebel, demanding to see God plainly, and they are struck by a thunderbolt. Right. Traditionally, these are just unnamed elders of Israel. But Dr. Waleed makes a very unusual connection. He links this to a verse in Surah At-Tawbah, which is about hypocrites during Muhammad's time. The verse says that even if the prophet asks forgiveness for them 70 times, God will not forgive them.
Most people would say 70 is just a figure of speech for a lot, like saying, I told you a million times.
Dr. Waleed disagrees. He says the number is precise. It's a code. He identifies these 70 as the Sanhedrin.
The Sanhedrin, the Supreme Council of Jewish judges and rabbis in Jerusalem.
Exactly. He argues that this council, this deep state of religious authority, if you will, has been the continuous antagonist throughout prophetic history.
A continuous body.
He claims they appear with Moses, as the 70 rebels. They appear with Jesus, as the judges who tried him. And he argues they were present and active in the time of Muhammad.
Wait, present in the time of Muhammad, but if Muhammad was in Mecca in Saudi Arabia?
Well, there's the rub. If Muhammad was in Petra, Jerusalem, as Dr. Waleed claims, then the presence of a powerful rabbinical council makes much more geographical and political sense.
So the enemies described in the Quran.
He argues that the polytheists, or mushrikeen, weren't just stone-worshipping nomads. He believes they were a corrupted religious elite associated with the Israelites, who had turned the religion into a tool of control and commerce.
So the enemies in the Quran aren't just random pagans, they are a specific entrenched priesthood.
Yes, a continuous line of opposition. He calls them the devils of mankind, represented by this Council of 70.
This leads us to one of the most radical identity swaps in his theory, the character of Zayd.
Oh, Zayd. This is a big one, and very controversial.
In the Quran, Zayd is the only one of the Prophet's companions mentioned by name. Traditional history identifies him as Zayd bin Haritha, the Prophet's adopted son. There's a whole story about Zayd divorcing his wife, Zainab, and the Prophet then marrying her to abolish the pre-Islamic taboo of a man marrying his adopted son's ex-wife.
Right, that's the standard story found in the Torah and the Heritage books. Dr. Waleed says, not quite.
He rejects it.
He rejects the adopted son narrative entirely. He claims that story is a fabrication, an Israelite story designed to cover up the real, much more significant truth.
So who was Zayd, according to Dr. Waleed?
He argues that Zayd was actually a high-ranking religious figure, specifically a chief rabbi or high priest of the children of Israel.
A high priest named Zayd.
Yes. He interprets the word Zayd based on its root, to grow, to increase, to have a surplus. He sees Zayd as someone with surplus knowledge. His theory is that Zayd was a leader of the Sanhedrin who recognized Muhammad's message and believed in him.
Okay, so what about the verse about marriage and divorce? When Zayd had dissolved his union with her, how does he explain that?
Dr. Waleed reinterprets the marriage and divorce metaphors. He argues it wasn't about a woman at all. It was about authority and knowledge.
Authority and knowledge.
He claims Zayd divorced his position. He stepped down from his high priestly authority, his wife, in this metaphor, the thing he was wedded to, in order to follow the prophet.
Wow. So the verse isn't about domestic affairs. It's about a transfer of spiritual authority from the Israelite line to Muhammad.
That's his reading. He claims Zayd passed the covenant, or the mantle of leadership, to Muhammad. It symbolizes the transition from the Israelite priesthood to the new Islamic message, right there in the heart of Jerusalem.
That completely changes the political stakes of the Quran. It's not a domestic drama, it's a geopolitical and theological coup d'etat.
Exactly. It fits perfectly with his broader theme. The Quran is documenting a massive struggle for the Holy Land and the Covenant, not just tribal skirmishes in the desert.
And speaking of the Holy Land, we have to talk about the stones, the megaliths. Dr. Waleed is obsessed with the stones.
He is. And if you've ever seen them, you can understand why. If you go to Jerusalem, specifically the foundations of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall, or if you go to Baalbek in Lebanon, you see stones that are mind-boggling.
How big are we talking?
We are talking about single cut stones that weigh 350, 400, sometimes 800 tons. The stone of the south at Baalbek is estimated at over 1,000 tons.
Stones that even our largest modern cranes struggle to lift.
Dr. Waleed looks at these and says, humans didn't do this. He's adamant. He believes the illiterate or Gentile nations of the past did not have the technology to quarry, transport, and lift these things with such precision.
So who did? Aliens. Ancient aliens.
No, not aliens. He stays within the Quranic framework. He leans towards jinn, or angels, non-human entities commissioned by God during the times of powerful prophets like Solomon. He connects this to the Quranic verses about Solomon controlling the jinn and the winds. The Quran says they built for him arches, statues, basins like reservoirs. He sees this as literal high technology.
So he believes the foundations of Jerusalem are supernatural.
He believes they were built by jinn or angels, under the command of prophets. He calls this the original construction. The human civilizations, the Romans, the Israelites, the Umayyads, they just built on top of these pre-existing non-human foundations.
It adds a layer of high fantasy to his theology, doesn't it?
It does.
The Holy Land isn't just holy because God pointed at it. It's holy because it has this ancient supernatural infrastructure.
It reinforces his idea that this land is unique. You can't just move the holiness to a tent in Mecca in the desert. The hardware, the original divine hardware, is in Jerusalem.
No, I know some of our listeners are probably wondering, how does he get away with this kind of interpretation? Doesn't the Arabic grammar stop him? I mean, words have meanings.
Well, that brings us to Section 5, Linguistic Deconstruction. Dr. Waleed essentially declares war on grammar.
He hates Arab.
Irab is the traditional system of Arabic grammar, parsing sentences, vowel markers, all that technical stuff that students spend years learning. Dr. Waleed views traditional Arabic grammar schools as another spell cast by the heritage scholars. He thinks they obsess over vowel markers and complex rules to twist the meaning and lock it down. He prefers a much more fundamental approach, root analysis.
Break the word down to its three-letter root and see what it really means conceptually.
Right. Let's go back to Mathani, the seven Mathani. We said earlier it relates to the seven gates, but linguistically, he connects it to the root thny.
Which means
to fold, to bend, to double, to make a pair, but also, by extension, to be weak.
How does he get weak from fold?
Think of something pliable, something that bends under pressure. It's not rigid, it's the lower rank, the one that gives way.
Okay, I can sort of see the logic there.
And he applies this to a really controversial verse, the polygamy verse. Marry women of your choice, 2 or 3 or 4. The Arabic is mathna wa thulatha wa ruba.
Right, this is a prime example of his method. He argues that mathna here doesn't just mean the number 2. He connects it to a verse about angels having wings of mathna, thulatha, ruba, 2, 3, 4. Wait, angels having wings. You mentioned this. He doesn't think it's literal wings.
No, he argues wings in the Quran often represent military ranks or degrees of power and elevation, not feathery limbs. So when the Quran says marry mathna, he doesn't read it as marry 2.
He reads it as.
He interprets it as a command to prioritize the weakest or broken elements of society, the ones who have been bent by hardship.
So it's not collect as many wives as you can, it's care for the most vulnerable first.
Exactly. He sees it as a social welfare command. Marry, or care for, the bent, broken ones, mathna, then the next tier of vulnerable, the 3s, thulat, and so on. He turns a verse often cited for male privilege into a verse about social responsibility and folding the weak into the community.
It's a complete inversion, and it all stems from refusing to accept the dictionary definition and digging into the root logic.
That's his trademark. He wants to deconstruct the spell of language to find the original covenant.
Which brings us to the core theological point. The so what? Why does all this matter? Why does he care so much if Makkah is Petra or if Zaid was a rabbi? What is this covenant he's always talking about?
The covenant Amithak. This is the name of his channel, after all. It's the central pillar of his entire worldview. Dr. Waleed centers everything on Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran.
The one that's repeated in every prayer.
Specifically the verse, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. You alone we serve, and you alone we ask for help.
That sounds standard. Every Muslim says that 17 times a day at least.
True. But Dr. Waleed interprets service or worship, nabadu, here strictly, and I mean strictly, as taking knowledge.
Taking knowledge, not just praying or fasting.
No. He says, you alone we serve means we take our facts, our history, our geography, and our religious law only from your book, the Quran. If you go to a hadith book to understand a verse, you are serving someone else. If you go to a history book written 200 years later, you are serving someone else. If you listen to a sheikh's opinion over the text, you broke the covenant.
So his entire geographical theory is actually a test of that covenant.
Exactly. He believes the heritage, the story of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, the traditional biographies, is a fabrication designed to test who will stick to the text and who will follow the crowd. Rediscovering the atlas of the 8 prophets in the Levant is about breaking the chains of the sorcerers, the scholars, and returning to the direct data from God.
He portrays it as a battle between light and dark.
Yes, the light is the revelation, the Quran, pure, direct, unmediated. The darkness is the specialized priesthood, whether it's the Sanhedrin of old or the clergy of today, who want to monopolize access to God.
And they do that by controlling the information.
By hiding the true geography, they hid the true nature of the struggle.
And he thinks this has end times relevance, that it matters right now.
He does. He points to Surah Al-Isra, the chapter of the night journey. It talks about a future event where believers will enter the masjid, the sanctuary, as they entered it the first time. Dr. Waleed believes this is about the cycle of corruption and purification of the Holy Land, which for him is unequivocally Jerusalem. He argues that the land is currently blocked or occupied by impurity, and he implies this isn't just political occupation, but spiritual corruption by those who follow the old priesthood mentality.
So unlocking the true map is what?
Mystery.
A key to spiritual liberation. He believes that the energy or the spiritual connection of the true holy site is blocked by our ignorance. If we realign our compass, literally and spiritually, to the true Baka, Jerusalem, we reconnect with the original covenant of all the prophets.
It is a massive theory. I mean, it rewrites geography, history, identity, and theology all in one go.
It's a theory of everything for the Quran. It ties all the loose ends, the mysterious letters at the start of chapters, the unnamed cities, the vague references, into a tight, geographically bound narrative centered in the Levant.
But naturally, it requires you to throw out 1,400 years of consensus and scholarship, which Dr. Waleed would say is exactly the point. The constancy he talked about isn't just for prophets. It's the willingness of the believer to stand alone against the heritage when the data points elsewhere.
Okay, let's take a breath. That was a lot. We've covered the 8 prophets, the hand analogy, the shift from Mecca to Petra and Baka to Jerusalem, the Sanhedrin, Zayd the high priest, and the core meaning of the covenant.
It's a lot to process in one sitting. It's a completely different paradigm.
It is, and remember, we are just scratching the surface of Dr. Khaled Waleed's lectures. His channel, Almighty Covenant, goes into verse-by-verse, word-by-word detail on this.
And regardless of where you stand, whether you think this is brilliant deduction or total heresy, you have to appreciate the internal logic he's trying to build. He's trying to make the text self-sufficient.
Which is a monumental task. So here is the question I want to leave you with, listener, and it's a provocative one.
Go for it.
If Dr. Waleed is right, just for a moment, entertain the idea. If the cave isn't a remote hole in a mountain, but the cavern beneath the foundation stone in Jerusalem, and if the prophet wasn't a merchant in a remote desert town, but a challenger standing at the gates of the ancient monotheistic center, how does that change the story for you?
That's the heavy hitter. Does it change the prophet from an outsider breaking in to an insider reclaiming what was lost? Is it a story of discovery in a new land or a story of restoration at the old center?
And if the Holy Land isn't just a place on a map, but a gate to be opened, a piece of divine hardware, are we looking at the map or are we looking for the key?
That's the question.
Thanks for taking this deep dive into the Almighty Covenant with us. Keep questioning.
And keep reading.
See you next time.